All right, everyone. Welcome back to the Financier. This week I have Parth Mehta. He's the founder and CEO of StartUp Tribes. Really exciting young entrepreneur, part of the TiE network, part of TiE New Jersey chapter. He's going to come in and talk about the ecosystem. He's a recent college graduate, so he's got a very good experience working very early on. I don't think he did a full-time job, so it's quite amazing. His story is very, very promising for many youths working in the industry, looking to work in full-time startup, venture, eco, raising, bootstrapping. So without further ado, Parth, I'd like to introduce you and welcome you on board.
Thank you, Vijar. How are you?
Good, good. What's going on? What's new?
I'm good. Just, I think, easing off with this new normal, right? Like 1 year down, and let's just hope everything starts getting better this year.
Where are you based now? You still in Jersey?
Yeah, I'm in Jersey, located now in central Jersey around East Brunswick. So closer to my office. Before I was based in Newark when I graduated from New Jersey Institute of Technology. Now it's just easier. But hey, when I got closer, now everything's remote. So just easy off.
Yeah, we're based in Newark. I know you were out there for a while.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So, but accustoming with my new hairstyle, the COVID hairstyle, I say. So I think a lot of my clients or a lot of my partners who saw me pre-COVID, they're going to have something new to focus on in our next meetings or our next in-person meeting soon.
Yeah, it's the trend. All right, so let's begin. Why don't you give a quick overview of why you were in Newark? Give a little background of how you got to where you are today.
Sure. So, like you mentioned, I graduated from New Jersey Institute of Technology, I think back in 2019, so fairly new graduate. And after that, I've been full-time in my own startup. StartUp Tribes. We're based in East Brunswick, New Jersey. And we focus primarily on working with innovation ecosystems. We work with incubators, entrepreneurship organizations, pretty much creating a startup ecosystem where any entrepreneur, especially focusing on diversity and inclusion, so entrepreneurs who don't have access to capital, access to resources or mentoring or building their team, we easily do that through digitization. And at the core, we are ecosystem builders. So once we create an ecosystem, we connect them with other startup tribes ecosystems, and we do a lot of resource sharing, which pretty much boosts up each individual ecosystem and creating a robust network, which wasn't possible before. So that's essentially where we focus on. And I think through COVID, it just proved that if you're not online, or if your operations, let's say your Center for Entrepreneurship, your accelerator or incubator doesn't have anything digital, then it goes kind of stale, especially when everything is being challenged to maximum capacity. So we saw a major uptick in that, and we've been extremely busy working with a lot of these support organizations, investment groups, and incubators as well.
So let's take a step back. What did you do at NJIT?
Mm-hmm. So my NJIT background, or my academic background, is in information and network security. So I was heavy focused in cybersecurity, but I always had the entrepreneurial bug. So in my head, I was like, okay, I'll have this encryption algorithm, securing big data. And in my head, I was talking with a lot of professors on how to create an algorithm and build a company around it, which will pretty much make an exit with Facebook or any Twitter or large MNC taking over. So I always had that in the discussion, even when I was studying cybersecurity. And in my final year, I was a student who was not the ideal candidate for, I would say, jobs or internships, because I had my first internship in my final year, like 6 months before I get out. I got a chance in a New York City fintech company, and I went in, and I was their first person in the cybersecurity department. And they're like, we have network admins and all. You do this and get us secure. And I'm like, wow, okay, this is a lot of exposure. But when I'm working there, I was working like 9 a.m. to like 10 p.m., 11 p.m. And it was all passion. Like I was always passion oriented. So I didn't care about the money at that point. But when I did that, I didn't really get the satisfaction I wanted, which is the entrepreneurial bug. So if you're an entrepreneur or you're in a job and you just feel that you're getting suffocated, I think that's a telltale sign that you're not made for the 9 to 5 office hours. You're pretty much 24/7 animal. And that's where I found out that I'm a 24/7 animal and I need to work. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I have the same bug. So you went from cybersecurity, which we've never talked about, but
Yeah.
the last 12 to 24 months, this has been the hottest sector to work in, to get a job, train, everything.
Oh, yeah.
And then people are spending more money on cyber than anything else. So you really took a big leap in the other direction.
Yeah. So that I would say that anything you do, end of the day, all the skills you acquire, and college pretty much for any student out there, don't look at college just for your degree. Look at college as a resource bank and use it to build connections, because that's essentially, I'll be honest, what my degree, it can be done in 6 months if you do it from YouTube or any online courses. But the value you gain is through the connections. And that's where I met one of the professor of entrepreneurship and innovation, Dr. Suresh Kumar, and he changed my whole life. So when I was in the fintech cybersecurity industry, I took an entrepreneurship class, and that's where everything changed. And I'm like, okay, this is how startups work. This is how investments work. And this is how student startups work. And I started coming out with different ideas and formulas because, as I mentioned, I was always I had the entrepreneurial bug, but I never had the right resources, connections. I never knew what's actually going around. Like Newark is, I would say, a walk away from New York City. It's a 20-minute ride to Times Square. Yet we had no idea. And it was just phenomenal. Once I was exposed to this startup world, it changed the whole trajectory. I left my job, and then I went into full-time as soon as I graduated into Startup Tribes.
Got it. All right. So let's go into Startup Tribes. When did you start it? What was the genesis of the business, and what are the services that you offer?
Yeah, so Startup Tribes, we founded it in early 2019, as early as January. So when I was leaving my job, I was in that transition that when I want to leave it, is it in the right position where I want it to be? And end of the day, I made the call that if it needs to be in the right position, I'm going to have to put those hours in. I can't, excuse my French, half-ass it. I'm going to have to go full in. And that's the entrepreneurial passion that you need. If you're doing it, do it 100% or don't do it. It's not going to succeed if you're not 100%. And when I left my job and I went into Startup Tribes, we were at a very early stage. We were still on the concept basis and the prototype phase where we're developing the prototype. And at that point, our focus was student entrepreneurship and youth innovation, and working with a lot of universities, Center for Entrepreneurships, and a lot of these on-campus incubators. And how can we connect students to the resources and to the investment opportunities, to mentoring, to different workshops and courses that are required, not just for entrepreneurial mindset, but it's really important to know startup marketing or sales, because these things are not taught in universities. It's not taught in university what you do when you fail. Like, we talk about what happens when you succeed, but what happens when you fail? Because entrepreneurship is kind of like getting punched in the face while eating glass and still trying to say that, oh man, I love this. So how do you make it forward? So we originally started off with that mindset, and we still are. Our core is that. And that's where we built a prototype as soon as I graduated. And it snowballed as any startup does, and it's critical to pivot when required. Don't be married with the idea. So I hold that culture, or hold that value very much, where I'm not married to something within my startup. If I see that we need to pivot or we need to make a tweak, I'm up for it. Like, I'm the first person who sticks with it. And then we just drove into this after, I would say, the first 6-7 months. We figured out how we can do market validation, and not just product validation, but cost validation, business model validation, everything. And once we saw the green light after a year and a half, then we kind of broke through and we went.
Now, most of this was when you were still in college, right? Your final year, when you were doing the prototype, business testing, right?
So in university, when I was in university, I didn't use it for prototyping or building the platform, because a lot of these students, keep in mind, whatever you create with university resources, they have the option to IP that, and they will license that technology to you. So I was very much aware of that. So I knew what I need to do and until what extent I need to go. So I was doing the research I needed to, and I needed to do the concept validation. So I was working with a lot of professors because they knew the issues on the back end, what the university faces, what the administration faces to generate entrepreneurship or generate student startups. And I was coming from the student perspective of the difficulties of founding a student startup and the support that is lacked in the industry. So that's where we did the marriage of kind of doing a lot of customer discovery, a lot of interviews on campus where we understood what the problem is and how to pinpoint and develop a solution after that. So the prototype development started exactly the day I left college. I was in my graduation ceremony. I wasn't even going to go to the graduation ceremony, but my parents flew in from Arizona, and I felt really bad that they flew in to see me. And if I don't go up on stage, it's going to be all messed up. So I go up on stage. We had like a 2-hour thing after the graduation. We go to a restaurant, we eat. And after 2 hours, I was in the Startup Tribe's office, and that's where the real work begins. So, yeah.
Did you grow up in Jersey?
Yeah, so I was born and brought up in New York, Long Island, and I moved a lot. I came to Jersey. I did a lot of years. I did a back and forth in India and US, where I kind of did a lot of academics in India. STEM foundation is very strong, the typical stereotype. But then I come back here for college. And then I kind of changed 3 colleges here. I went into Stockton University, and then I felt that that's a liberal arts college, and I was a computer science guy. So I went to Arizona State, and I loved their environment, but cybersecurity was the key. So cybersecurity was the best in NJIT. I come back to Jersey, and the best thing is, even after changing all these universities, I graduated on time. So that was my goal, graduating on time. I stressed it very hard.
Well, I'm with you. You probably could have finished all that coursework in 6 months, but that's for another day. So you took another untraditional path. You know, in the last few years, it's actually been easier to raise capital, venture, seed, early stage, the entire ecosystem, and that younger investment area has been just easier to raise millions of dollars to get your idea off the ground. That doesn't mean your success. But from what I understand, you actually bootstrapped your business, which is very unconventional. So let's talk about bootstrapping and then getting your first client.
Yeah. So 100%, I agree with what you said. And it should be highlighted as the number one thing when you found a startup, that early stage investments, when you bring in VC or when you bring in angels, that doesn't guarantee success. That's to fund your idea and to at least get a working prototype up and running. But I look at it from a different eye, and I'm very grateful for amazing mentors. I think you had Dr. Kumar last week or the week before, and he's been kind of like a North Star for me on how to do startups because of his success and his ideology of lean startup methodology he taught me. We bootstrapped from day one. So we understood that our software, what is required for an MVP? The next step is from MVP to prototype. And from prototype, then I called it version 1. A lot of times people just go in and they focus on the platform so much, they invest like $500,000 on the platform and they launch it. They have not validated the business model. They didn't validate the cost structure. And then they expect people to kind of pay them for it. And my thought process was, let's build an MVP. It doesn't need to look good. We just invested, bootstrapped, very minimum strong budgets that we had, allocated it to development. And then after development, we didn't do marketing, we did sales. That's very different. A lot of people think marketing and sales is the same, but we didn't focus on marketing, we focused on sales. And our focus was, let's get the first 5 clients up and running. And as you mentioned, for the first 5, we need the first 1. So how can we do that? And we built the MVP, and then we went to the first customer. We didn't wait for the prototype or anything, because every stage we went, let's say MVP, prototype, version 1, version 3, every time we created a new version, we made sure that we have a paying customer to validate the model, to validate the cost, to validate the feature. And everything since day one has been customer-oriented and customer feedback-driven. So that's been a major booster for Startup Tribes. And that's where I saw the major success, where we had the freedom to develop and go to the route that we want, because a lot of times investors kind of gain that power in having the say at the table. And they look at revenues mostly, that what is the best ROI. And for us, the focus is that what is the first 5 validation to approve the business model, because we have a very unique business model going in, and it worked out very well. And from the stage 1 up until now, we have all of them are paying customers or early stage adopters have helped us develop into what we are today.
Got it. So give us an idea of pricing and the exchange. What are people getting? What were they paying for in the early days? What are you offering to attract them, and how has it evolved from there?
Yeah. So in the early days, as any startup is, we're pretty much experimenting. We didn't have the clarity of, okay, this is what we're going to do and we're not going to change it. Like, this is exactly what we're going to do. So it was very, I would say, custom oriented, customized for each organization or each client that we went with, because they had their own needs based on users or the modules that they require. But the general outline was we were offering our platform, all of it, like A to Z. And we quickly realized it's not always the best strategy to offer everything. You may have 1 to 20 items, but the best combination would be something else, or your customer may just require that one pain point to be resolved. So this is where we started building from the MVP. We had our customers very intimate meetings where we did user-based, we did it module-based customizations. And throughout the past 2.5 years, now we're at a phase where we have some more clarity, and we have it based on corporate clients. We have it based on nonprofit clients. And we also do like one-offs if it's a very unique, or if it's their first time and we need to handhold them, we do that. So now it's like a modular approach, which modules they require, because our whole architecture of the platform is you can pick and select, you can take it out, you can strip it off, and combine it with other integrations we offer. And we also made it user-based, which was the latest change now. After COVID, we saw that some organizations would have 4,000 users, some organizations would have 80 students, and it's not right to charge them the same price.
Got it. So most people go into the corporate world, they have all these resources, they learn about HR, and they learn about how systems work and processes. Tell us about what you've learned, because you've never worked in that environment, but you had to build a lot of those processes in place. Like, that system is from 0 to 1, right? So what have you learned, and like, what are some mistakes that you've made in the last 2 years?
Definitely. So that's a very good question, because I've been mentoring a lot of young entrepreneurs myself, or student. I shouldn't say young. I'm still young, but that question is really good, because most of the startups fail because of that. It's not regarding to the platform. It's because of the organization or the structure of the company internally. And one thing I was very heavy on from day one was I lack experience. As we all know, I didn't have the corporate experience. So how do I make up for it? By building a strong board of advisors. More importantly, hiring folks who have experience. So everybody in my founding team had 25 plus years of experience when they joined. And I was the youngest one. So we have experience over there, where we brought in directors of business development who had 22 plus years of experience in sales and marketing, business development. We had folks who are entrepreneurship ecosystem experts, which is our core foundation. And these folks are world renowned, very closely affiliated with Kauffman Foundation, and in our group that way. So we built up our experience model from day one. And from past year, we've been very aggressive in hiring young students who put in the grunt work, right? So we built the strategy at the top level with experience. Now we bring in the young blood to do the day-to-day operations. And I would say the best reward I got is to see how much the new hires or the new team members are experiencing the startup, because they're coming from corporate experience. And they're like, it's amazing to see, as we were working as developers, now we get to work as product leads or even client success experience managers, etc. So I would say having the right balance is key, but there was a study which said that the average age for a successful entrepreneur is 44 years, right?
Yeah.
But what happens when you start doing research where the team is all folks who are in their 40s, 50s with extreme experience, market leaders in AI, market leaders in ecosystem building, entrepreneurship, and then your daily team members or your grunt workers at the lower level, or I would say development level, are all youngsters who are working 12, 16 hours a day as you want them to. Right. So that's the right equation we built.
So what's like one mistake you'd like to highlight, or like what you tell people to learn from that you made?
So I would say every mistake is something you need to learn from, because it's an existential crisis, right? Yeah. I think yesterday, I don't want to name the bank, but they kind of messed up by sending $900 million to someone. so that creates a big problem for them. But if we do something similar at a much smaller scale, we're out, we're wiped out. As a startup, it just takes one incorrect step without rectifying it to go down the rabbit hole. So there were multiple mistakes that we made, but one of the key ones I would say is we needed to scale up at a much quicker rate. So we got a very large customer in our box, and we were thinking that how we'll scale up when it's required. We don't want to scale up right now. And our team was burning out at its max. And as an entrepreneur, you're passionate. And one thing that my mentors had to open my eyes with is, and I even saw one video of Gary Vaynerchuk, and that was a major eye-opener for me, was the entrepreneur has a reason to be passionate. Nobody else does in the team, not their investors, not their mentors, not their team members. Nobody else has the same passion. So expecting that level of work from your team members is ethically incorrect, but also it leads to burnout, and that has a very negative impact on your launch or your customer experience. So that's something I learned the hard way. When I was pushing my team, I've been working 22-hour days since, I would say, 2019 September. Like, it's completely normal for me. I've lived on coffee. I've budgeted so much of my life that a $3 pizza and $2.50 bagel, Dunkin' Donuts bagel, I'm like, this is my dinner, $2.50 bagel and coffee. And I lived on that. So expecting that from others is incorrect. And I would say that's something that every entrepreneur needs to keep in mind, is that you're in it for the long haul. Other people are trying to make their ends meet, or they're in it for the job. You need to respect that. You need to respect that clearly.
Yeah, absolutely. I've been in the same spot. In some ways, I'm probably still in the same mindset, so it doesn't change. It's how you grow up.
Oh, yeah.
So you touch a lot of the ecosystem, from the venture labs to the accelerators to the local co-working spaces. You've touched them, or you work with them in some capacity. So, highlight one or two of them, either in New Jersey or across the country, that you like, or you like to, let other people know about. And then I'd love for you to pick one startup that's on your mind that you think is doing really well right now. Whether it's whether you work with them or not, they're just on the headlines.
Sure. So the two main programs that we did, I'll give an example of what we did outside of Jersey and what we're actually doing as we speak in Jersey. So last year we worked with the Lemelson MIT Lemelson MIT, and that program was major, and that was very close to my heart, because that was focused on diversity, inclusion, and STEM innovation for high school students from underserved or underrepresented communities. And that program was in multiple states across the country. And we worked with students who primarily didn't have laptops. So we work with, now we work with a lot of corporates, but back then we had, there were a corporate funding that was coming in through a life science company. We had Lemelson MIT as a research backing, and StartUp Tribes was a platform that the students were working on. And that was such a rigorous program where students didn't really have access to STEM education, or especially biotechnology, or any other classes or courses that other schools may have easy access to, AP courses and etc. So throughout the 3 to 4 month program that we did, we saw students get a lot of interest in working in those fields. They got STEM awareness in the fields of biotechnology, biology, microbiology, etc. And that resonated with me directly, because I was focused on another metrics, right? As every company has its own metrics. But that really gave me a reality check that it's not always quantitative data that we need to focus on. We made major impact firsthand in the qualitative lives of students. And who knows, that changed the whole trajectory of these students who may have thought their life as a different route. And now they're on a completely different projection and they have their whole life set up going forward. So that really resonated with me. And that's where we brought in the diversity inclusion focus more when we work with corporates now through their DEI and CSR programs. But we're also doing a program in New Jersey with the R&D Council and their New Jersey STEM Pathways Network, where we're doing a community challenge across the state of New Jersey with all of our high school students. And they are submitting business proposals and based on solutions or innovations that they're coming up in their head based on the problems that their community or neighborhood is facing due to the pandemic and specifically for COVID. And we're working with them, connecting them with mentors from various companies like Johnson & Johnson, PSE&G, Novartis, etc., many more. And through that, we're doing workshops. They're submitting blueprints for business. And I'll tell you, I kid you not, I am so impressed by these students that I saw on their profile that a high school student has cyber forensics. I learned about cyber forensics for the first time in my life when I was in college and I took that class. And these students are equipped in Node.js. Some folks are MATLAB experts, and it's just phenomenal where STEM can take you and STEAM education can take you. So those students are currently working in that community challenge at the New Jersey level, and we got government support where they will be pushing that agenda for the winning team forward. So that's a major program that we're currently doing in the community challenge.
That's pretty cool. We've actually done, or we're still doing it with Westside High School in Newark. We're helping the youth. They don't have the same resources, laptops, STEM education, and whatnot. So we're helping them figure out how to launch their e-commerce stores, how to sell products online, create that type of community engagement. So it's pretty cool. It's definitely needed. So there's a big lack in most of these communities.
Exactly. Yeah. And so, innovation can really change the whole equation in the student's life. So.
Yep. Definitely. So tell me one startup that either, the CEO or the funding, something that's caught your eye in the last 12 months, you think is going to do well or is definitely making progress?
I wouldn't say that they're a startup anymore, but the recent news of them going in the IPO, I think we all know Bumble, right?
Yeah.
So that's been a very inspirational story. I've read quite a few things about their CEO, and she's just 31. Right, she's one of the, if not the youngest CEO to go public. So that's an inspirational story, not from the perspective of an exit strategy or going public. That just tells you her story. When I read that she was part of Tinder, co-founding Tinder, her story after that, what happened, and then in 2014 she launched Bumble. That's something that everyone needs to understand. If you're an entrepreneur or not, when the door is slammed on you, when your own innovation is taken away from you, your own idea is stolen, that's not the end of the world. Temporarily, it's going to have a major impact in your life, but you just pause, think about the long term, think about your life journey. There's a lot more time. There's really a lot of time in this lifespan that we have. And we need to think about that. How are we going to use that and make it productive? We can think and cry about that one problem that you had, that you got kicked out of. Or you can say that, okay, that's my past. How can I work on my present to make my future better? And that's the general story I got from that founder story. So that's what I live by. And I always think about that when I wake up and when I go to bed, that, hey, whatever problems are there today, I live to fight another day. So
yeah, that's a good one. I didn't think about that, but Whitney is an amazing turnaround. Obviously, she did quite a bit in the last 6-7 years.
Yeah,
because it's a very, very new app. It's got a lot of momentum. It's picked up a lot of steam everywhere.
Yeah, and one thing that youth entrepreneurship needs to push, like the courses or professors, or even just us, like you, me, everybody else who are in the startup ecosystem, is a lot of this entrepreneurship buzz is not real. Like when you go on Instagram, when you go on Facebook, people are talking about entrepreneurship and they have these Lamborghinis, they talk about all the success or they fake it. But the reality is the grunt work that goes in and day out. Like you're beating yourself up, your relationships break, you get cut off from the world, you lose 90% of your life because you're trying to make the rest of it amazing, right? So that one quote, I'll just like to wrap my idea around this one is to be that top 1%, you can't live a life of the 99%.
Right.
There's a reason that the 1% is 1%. And majority of the folks are going to tell you that you're not going to make it. Your product is not good. Trust me, 9 out of 10 people told me my business model won't work. My platform is not unique enough. There have been folks that I've been learning from a lot, and they told me that we don't, on innovation day, they told me that you don't even have an innovative idea. 1 year down the line, they saw my clientele, they saw where we are right now, and okay, some talk to me, some people don't, but that's what you got to bask in. It's you don't think about anybody else. You think about how you are going to improve, and qualitative over quantitative. Don't be an entrepreneur for the money. Don't get into entrepreneurship because of the money, because I had very good paying jobs. I had more than 3 to 4 job offers in 6 digits. And I was willing to give that up because end of the day, you're here to make an impact. Mm-hmm. Maybe you're not changing the world directly, but small steps at a time. And that's what makes the difference. And end of the day, success is what you define. It's not anything that anybody else defines. So for me, success is no stress because I'm doing what I love. And I cannot complain about anything that goes on in my company or startup because I chose to be here, right? So if my startup if I'm having a trouble or if I'm facing a problem for today, I can't complain about it. I resolve it because I'm choosing to be here, or I can walk out any day. Nobody's forcing anybody to be here.
Yeah. Well, we got a lot of thumbs up when you said that, so that's a good sign. I think everyone enjoyed that. So let's wrap up. Let's tell people where they can find you, how they can learn about Startup Tribes or connect with you if they're maybe a client or a student, however you want to provide your information.
Sure. So one easiest thing as we're on LinkedIn is search me up, Parth Mehta, CEO, founder of Startup Tribes. And currently we also our website, startuptribes.org. So that's our company site, and we're going to be revamping that with all our new clientele. We're giving a revamp for our website because we've only been focused on the product right now. So that's going to be changing soon. But I'm happy to connect with anyone, young entrepreneurs who need mentorship or just want to hear my story, because there's a lot of things I love to share from my experience more about the things not to do, because that's what essentially molds you into a better person. I'll share the success stories too, but there's a lot more learning to do from the failures. And the second thing is anybody who's working in STEM communities, innovation or entrepreneurship ecosystems, Center for Entrepreneurships, incubators, or even government organizations that focus on economic development through innovation, through startup, or anything related to academic institutions reaching out to community or underserved communities, because we work a lot with, and one more is corporate. So we have multiple branches that we work with. So we're currently focusing on CSR and DEI initiatives with corporates in STEM education, STEAM innovation, professional workforce development as well. We've done programs for K through 12 teachers in how to bring innovation into e-learning or their online classes with school students. So we're happy to connect with you, and just reach out to me, and I'm sure that we'll find a way to collaborate. So.
Excellent. So there you have it, guys. If you have any questions or you want to contact Parth, you know where to reach him. Well, until further ado, so let's wrap it up, Parth. Thank you again for joining.
Thank you.
Until next time, everybody, we'll sign off on the finance here, and I'll see you guys soon. Take care.
Take care, guys. Thank you so much.